Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell. So yeah, how can you not love that title? This is considered to be the Japanese Evil Dead. In fact, that's basically the tagline to a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays with this movie. And I can totally see it. It basically straight up comes across as if a bunch of Japanese college students were watching Evil Dead and thought, you know what, we can do that. And so they decided to try their hand. And they pretty much nailed it for the most parts. So this is a movie that was almost lost to the world. It was filmed in 1995. I'm assuming this was during the whole 90s straight to VHS craze. And this movie is probably trying to like capitalize on that. But for whatever reason, it just never came to fruition. It was never released until decades later. So filmed in 1995, lost to the world until 2012 when it was finally discovered and released on DVD. It got a theatrical release in Japan in 2014. It didn't get an international release until 2017. And then finally last year, 2022, was when it got its Blu-ray release in the US. So this was a film that was made in the mid-90s and basically didn't see the light of day until almost 2 decades later. And I am really happy that it was discovered. I'm really happy that it got its release because it is a crazy fun romp. It is basically a over-the-top gore fest. You got your blood, you got your guts, you got so many body parts flying around, mashing together to create weird entities. And the effects are pretty crazy. Not crazy good, just crazy. Like I said, this is like a shoestring budget. So basically our main actor is the Swiss Army knife of this movie. His name is Shinichi Fukuzawa. And Shinichi does the editing, he does the producing, he does the writing, he does the directing, he plays as the main character, and he also plays as a secondary character. So this guy's got a lot of roles in this movie, a lot of jobs that he's got to do. Other than him, we only got 4 other actors and actresses who have done no other films or TV shows or anything else since this movie. So I'm assuming that they're maybe just friends or something. You have Natzan act doing the music. You have Shinichi Okuda as the camera and electrical department. And that's basically it. That's your entire cast. So less than 10 people working on this movie. Shoestring budget, but what they do with that budget is pretty crazy. So obviously this was back in a time when CGI was either new or like not really available. They don't really have the money for practical effects. So you're basically getting a bunch of like paper mache, raw meat bought at the store with a bunch of fake blood. But you also have some crazy stuff like stop motion, as well as claymation and Photoshop being done to give us some of these really weird, unique special effects for this movie. So the basic plot of this movie is, trapped inside a haunted house, a bodybuilder must save himself from a gruesome ghost hell-bent on revenge. That's the IMDb synopsis. And the Tubi synopsis is basically the same. Trapped inside a haunted house, a bodybuilder named Shinji must save himself and his friends from a demonic ghost before it's too late. And Tubi is where I've seen this movie. I'll leave a link down to where you can watch it yourself if you're so inclined, and I highly recommend doing so, especially if you're an Evil Dead fan, if you're a horror fan, if you love like just splatter films. This has all of that and then some. And it's also a very short watch. The runtime is 1 hour and 3 minutes. And like some of those minutes are the end credits. So yeah, you can watch this in like 1 hour and be done with it. Very short movie, but it's short and sweet. It just gets right to the point. It doesn't drag along. You don't have any crazy subplots that you need to like wrap up. There's no filler. It just tells the story it needs to tell, and then it ends it when it needs to end it. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to go through the entire movie almost scene by scene, so there are going to be spoilers. So if you want to see it for yourself, click the link, pause this video first, click the link down in the description below, watch it, and then hopefully come back to this. Not only am I going to be talking about the entire movie scene by scene, and I'm going to be showing screenshots, I'm also going to be showing clips. If you're watching this on YouTube and you don't see any clips, And that's probably because this video got claimed or something like that. But you will be able to see the clipped version on my other channels, Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble. So you can check it out there. And with that said, let's get right into this. So yeah, the basic plot is that in the 70s, a man whose name we don't ever get is dating this girl, but he's seeing another woman. And this other woman is a woman that he's in love with and he plans to marry. And of course, his current girlfriend, who he's in the process of breaking up with, gets completely upset. She goes psycho crazy and she pulls out a knife and she basically says, if I can't have you, nobody can. And she stabs him. But she stabs him in an area where it doesn't kill him. And he's able to pull the knife out. And then they start wrestling each other for the knife. And eventually he's able to swing her arm down so that she ends up stabbing herself in the heart. And she dies. We see him just like pulling out the boards of the floor of his house. And he's basically digging a grave that he's going to dump this body in. And as it's going down, we see just like some weird events happening, like her necklace falls and all this blood that's been gushing out of her like pools into the necklace. But he dumps the body in, buries her, and then moves on with his life. And then we cut to the mid-90s where we see his son, who is now an adult, basically just lifting weights. This is how we're introduced to Shinji. Shinji is someone he's a gym bro. He's basically obsessed with muscles and gaining as much muscles as he can. And that's pretty much all he has in life. He quit his job a year ago. He doesn't really have much going for him. His parents are dead. He doesn't have any other friends or family. So there's really no one for him to care about. So he's just kind of going through life, just kind of wondering what he's going to do with himself. And in the meantime, he's taking up the hobby of lifting weights. And then his ex-girlfriend comes back into the picture. She is a journalist who is specializing in haunted houses, haunted places. And she wants to meet with Shinji because there's this photo that Shinji has of the house where his dad murdered this woman. Nobody knows about this, though. The dad was never caught or anything like that. But there's a photo of this house that she saw back when her and Shinji were dating each other, and it always like gave her the freaks. Like she always got really scared and nervous whenever she saw it. Like it just made her really uncomfortable. And she wants to see the photo again because she wants to use it in one of her articles. So, they meet up and stuff like that. And he shows her the picture, and he also shows another picture that shows his dad and his ex-lover in front of the house. And she basically asks, you know what, I want to make this house the main piece in my article. Can you take me there sometime soon? And he's like, sure, I can do that. And so we see them driving in a car where there's another guy in the back seat. And the other guy is Mizuguchi. And Mizuguchi is a psychic. And basically Mika brought him along so that he can see if he can sense any kind of danger or evil spirits in this house. And so yeah, our group arrives at the house, and this place is kind of crappy. The doors are kind of boarded up. The windows are boarded up. Grass is growing all over the place. It's also across from a cemetery, so good luck trying to get this place sold. They go inside, and as they're inside, Shinji tells them that the electricity is the only thing that really works. Water doesn't work. There's no AC or anything like that. Kitchen doesn't work. Stove doesn't work. Only the lights. And he's thinking, maybe I'll fix it up a bit. Right now, I'm just kind of using this place as a gym. Like I have all my weight equipments down in the basement, and I just kind of go there to work out when I'm not working out at home. So that's pretty much all that's in this tiny little house. We even go like room to room. We just see like maybe like a doll here and there, some boxes, but it's pretty empty for the most part. And as they're going around, Mizuguchi kind of senses that there's something wrong with this place. We even get this one moment where he turns because he sees something near Shinji. And right behind Shinji is a hand that drops on his shoulder, but Shinji doesn't feel it at all. And when Mizuguchi points to it, Shinji like turns and there's nothing there. So Mizuguchi's like, yeah, there's something definitely off with this place. And unfortunately for him, that's when a clock that's hanging on the wall hits him in the back of the head and knocks him out. And he comes to and he's back inside Mika's car. And Shinji and Mika are outside under the hood of the car because for some reason the engine's not starting. And Mizuguchi wakes up and he goes out. He basically asks, like, what happened? And that's when Shinji tells him, oh, the clock on the wall fell and hit you in the back of the head. And Mizuguchi's like, the clock fell from the wall, but I was standing in the middle of the room. How did the clock that was on the wall fall and hit me? And I was like, okay, you know what? That's actually a pretty good line. I actually didn't really think about that, but it's true. But Mizuguchi pretty much explains, like, there's something evil in this house, and I want to go explore it a little bit more. I want to go and check it out by myself for a little bit. So why don't you just stay here with Shinji and just let me use my psychic power to see what I can discover. Bad idea. But then again, this is a horror movie, and bad ideas and horror movies kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly. So Mizuguchi goes inside, starts using his powers and stuff, and we have this kind of cool moment where the first time when we're seeing this house, there's like this doll that's just sitting on the floor by itself. Well, it's like amongst a bunch of boxes of like junk and things. But then when Mizuguchi goes back in again, the doll's no longer on the floor. Instead, it's sitting on one of the boxes, and it has something wrapped around its hands. Where before it was empty-handed, now it seems to be clutching something. So Mizuguchi goes and he pulls out the thing that the doll is clutching, and it turns out to be a bloody towel. And as he unwraps it, he discovers the bloody knife that Shinji's father used to murder his ex-lover. He starts backing away, and as he's backing away, he senses something in the kitchen, and he turns and he looks, and he sees a female with her back towards him. And he recognizes immediately, okay, this is the ghost. This is the ghost that's haunting this house. So he approaches the woman. He's like, you're not going to harm me because you need me for something, right? What do you need me for? And as he goes to touch her, she turns around and grabs him and basically says, my body is already rotten. I'm going to take yours. And she stabs him in the chest. And all of a sudden she disappears. And Mizuguchi realizes that he's the one that stabbed his own self in the chest. And so he drops to the floor. As he's just like bleeding out and looking up at the ceiling, the ghost woman appears again, hovers above him, pulls out her necklace, and then drops it in his mouth. And that's when we cut to Shinji and Mika, who are just chilling outside. And Mika's starting to get a bit worried. She's like, you know what? He's been in there for a good long while. Maybe we should go find out what's wrong. And Shinji's like, all right, fine, whatever. Let's go. So they go inside the house, and it's quiet. And even when they call out for Mizuguchi, they're just not getting any response. Until eventually they find him lying on the kitchen floor. And they realize that something is wrong with him. He's bleeding from his chest. He appears to be super pale. And they're like rushing over to him. They're going to try to get him out of the house. And that's when he tells them, you need to leave now. You need to leave now while I'm still alive. And that's when he starts like convulsing. And we see the necklace that was in his mouth slowly start to levitate out of his mouth, lands on his cheek, and then it kind of like just slithers up his cheek, up to his eye, where it pierces inside his eyeball and goes inside his body. And this is all done in stop motion so that they can get this effect. And that's when all of a sudden the windows lock, the door shuts and locks, and they rush over to the windows, and the windows are boarded up from the outside, but they can't even get the window to slide open to get to the boards. And so they run to the door, and they can't get the door open. They're stuck inside. Shinji even tries kicking at the door, but he can't knock it down. I will be honest, the kicks are kind of weak, but I'm assuming they did that because if Shinji would have really kicked this door, you probably would bust it, And obviously they don't want to do that because they already have a low budget. You probably don't have a budget to fit in to repair the door. So yeah, they're stuck inside this house. And that's when Mizuguchi stands up. And he's been possessed. And so Mizuguchi is now possessed by the spirits of this dead woman that Shinji's father had killed back in the 1970s. And so Mizuguchi, now possessed, starts taunting the two heroes, and he charges at them with the bloody knife. And he's able to get a stab on Shinji's hands. And then he turns to Mika and starts choking Mika with both hands. And that's when we get like our first kind of cool gore moment where Shinji picks up the dropped knife, comes up behind Mizuguchi, stabs him in the back of the head. The blade penetrates through Mizuguchi's eyeball, and the eyeball like pops out on the tip of the knife. And then Shinji pulls the knife back out, and as he's pulling the knife back out, the eyeball gets sucked back into the eye socket. I was like, okay, that was a pretty cool little moment. But they're basically grappling with Mizuguchi until they're eventually able to shove him down the stairs into the basement. And then they close the door behind him and they kind of barricade it with some heavy objects. And now they're just trying to collect their bearings. And then they go and once again try to just get out of the house. They try to bust through the window. They try to bust through the door. Nothing's working. And as they're wondering like what they're going to do, that's when the TV all of a sudden flickers on. And it's just static for a moment. And then the face of Shinji's dad appears. And it's like the ghost of Shinji's dad. And he basically tells him like everything that's going on. That woman is my ex-lover. She's a crazy psycho. I had to murder her. I didn't want to, but I was forced to. And then I buried her body underneath the floorboards. She's crazy. She doesn't have like any strong powers herself. The reason why she's able to keep the doors and the windows barricaded and keep you trapped in the house is because she's using the powers of the psychic whose body she has taken over. If you can destroy the body, kill it, hack it up into pieces, then you should be able to get out. Your weapon is down in the basement. So use that weapon to destroy Mizuguchi, end this curse, end this nightmare, and get free. And then he tells them, like, I'm running out of time. And then we get this, like, effect where Shinji's dad's face just kind of, like, melts until he's gone. And then the TV flickers off again. Well, I was like, all right, okay. Basically a exposition dump right there. But I liked it. I mean, it's really schlocky. And, like, even the face melting effect is really, really cheap. Like, you can really tell that they had a shoestring budget for this, but I love this kind of stuff, so I really enjoyed this moment. And so now they have a plan. So they go to the basement, and Shinji is like listening in. He wants to, hear if Mizuguchi is like right on the other side of the door, or maybe Mizuguchi went down further into the basement. And as he's doing this, Mizuguchi drops from the ceiling. So Mizuguchi, I guess, was able to find like a vent or something to climb up to get out of the basement. He drops from the ceiling, and once again, we just get another fight where he's just grappling with Shinji. He's choking the crap out of Mika. They're just grappling with this dude, and all of a sudden Shinji pulls out a shovel and he starts beating Mizuguchi in the back of the head with this until eventually he uses the front of the spade to stab Mizuguchi in the neck, and then he stabs the shovel into a wall, and it basically dissects Mizuguchi from the neck down. So Mizuguchi's headless body just drops to the floor. Mizuguchi's head just stands mounted on top of the shovel, and the head's still alive. It's still animated. So it's like talking and taunting Shinji. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is basically Linda from Evil Dead 2. This is basically that moment where, you cut off the head, but the head's still talking. The body actually reanimates itself and starts attacking Shinji. And we get another like Sam Raimi shot attempt. By that, I mean anyone who's seen some of Sam Raimi's films, he has like just unique camera tricks and stuff that he does. And it almost seems like Shinichi Fukuzawa is trying to emulate one of those shots. And the shot in question is Mika finds a axe and she throws it towards Shinji. And then as she's throwing it, we get like slow motion. We get like a close-up of the axe spinning. And then we see it fly into Shinji's hand. And it's like, okay, this is like all an attempt at doing a Sam Raimi shot. Doesn't really quite land, but at least the attempt was made. And Shinji just starts hacking Mizuguchi. And I freaking love this scene because it's just so over-the-top comical, where he's hacking Mizuguchi's headless body, and then blood starts flying. And then all of a sudden a foot flies, and then a hand, and then other limbs. And it's just really comical. Like every time Shinji's bringing his axe down and then bringing back up, a body part starts flying off screen. And they basically have just chopped this body up into pieces, but the door and the window still won't open. So they're like, okay, what are we going to do? All right, how about we burn the body? So then they start collecting all the body parts, and they go into the kitchen, they put it on the kitchen table, and then eventually they grab Mizuguchi's head, and they put the head right next to the rest of the body parts. And Shinji has this picture that I guess the ex-lover like drew at some point, and it's just like a picture of a head. And Mizuguchi's kind of like, what do you think of my picture? Do you like it? And Shinji is just like, yeah. And he basically rolls up the paper and he shoves it in Mizuguchi's mouth. And then he holds out his hand for Mika. And the reason he does this is because earlier we had a moment where Mika was seen smoking. And Shinji is like, you're probably not going to appreciate me saying this, but every time you smoke, you lose so-and-so milligrams of vitamin C, and it's going to make you ugly. You really should quit. And the reason I even mention this is because we see him and he's holding out his hand towards Mika. And he's waiting for her to hand over the lighter that she uses to smoke. And instead, she just places her hands on top of Shinji's, and he's just kind of looking, and he's like, what the hell? Like, no, your lighter. I want your lighter. And then she's like, oh, I don't smoke anymore. He's like, what? Yeah, you told me to quit. Oh, well, I'm happy you listened to me. Now what are we going to do? It was just like, I just love that little moment. Just the little interaction between the two of them at that scene was just hilarious.
お別れだ。ライターもらえるかな。
ないよ。ナオト持ってないの？
だって俺タバコ吸わないもん。君は吸ったはずだろ。散々やめろって言ったのにさ。
だからやめたのよ。
そりゃよかった。
But yeah, they're like, okay, well, we can't burn his body now, so now what are we gonna do? And that's when Shinji realizes, okay, wait, the ghost of my dad told me that my true weapon was gonna be down in the basement, like the weapon made for me to stop this evil. So they go down to the basement where they see a shotgun, a pump-action shotgun. And they're like, okay, I'm gonna load this shotgun up with a bunch of shells, and I'm just gonna shoot the body until it just blows into tiny pieces. So that's the plan. We have just a cool moment where Shinji, like it again is another Sam Raimi shot where we have like a bunch of like quick cuts and zooms of Shinji like pulling out the shotgun, sliding the shells in, cocking it, and we even do like a close up of his face, and he goes groovy. So once again, just ripping off a catchphrase from Ash Williams from Evil Dead, but I loved it. I mean, I already went in like knowing, okay, this is basically a bunch of Japanese college age men and women trying to do their own version of Evil Dead. So I like the nods that they're doing to Evil Dead. At least they're like acknowledging that, yeah, this is basically our version of that. But they go back into the kitchen, and he's about to start just blowing away at these body parts when Mika points out, hey, some of the parts are missing. Shinji looks and he does a double take. He's like, yeah, you're right. And then that's when we get more kind of Evil Dead action, where we have a decapitated foot fly out and kick Shinji in the face. And then we just have a moment where it's just constantly like kicking him in the face. And it's just Shinichi Fukuzawa like holding this prop and jamming it into his face over and over again. But it's supposed to be like this: the foot is possessed and it's kicking him. And goes and starts attacking Mika and starts trying to choke her and stuff. And so we have a scene where Mika like grabs the hand and she like chucks it, and it hits the decapitated head and falls. And then we have like this cool moment where the head basically impales itself on the forearm bone of one of the hands so that it can crawl around like a spider, using the hand's fingers as its legs. And I was like, all right, this is cool. I like this. The prop itself looks very, very weak, but I love the attempt. And so as Shinji is like fighting off this decapitated foot, the the decapitated hand crawls up on the ceiling, and then it drops on Mika, and it starts biting her in the neck. And of course, Shinji sees this, so he like chucks the foot and shoots it, and then he runs over and he starts grabbing the head by the face and trying to yank it off. And at one point, he basically uses his fingers to shove into the eye sockets of the decapitated head, and you just see like blood gushing out. And then it rips the head off of Mika, chucks it across the room, and then he shoots it where it like explodes in a blaze of gore. And yeah, it's done. And then that's when he starts turning to the rest of the body parts that are starting to move and stuff. And he just starts unloading his shotgun into these body parts. And he's just blowing it into pieces. And we just see like holes getting blasted into these body parts. And so he rushes over to Mika and he like checks on her, and he sees the vicious bite marks on her neck. And it looks to be kind of like infected. There's like this weird like meaty stuff around it. And he rushes over and he starts trying to like yank open the windows, the door, because he thinks, okay, I blasted the hell out of this body. Whatever curse is on this house should be lifted, right? Nope. Instead, as he's doing this, we see that all the body parts are starting to kind of mesh a little bit together, and all this blood is rushing to this certain part of the house where it sinks into the floorboards. And Shinji comes just in time to see a hole starting to get made out of these floorboards. And then all of a sudden, the rotten body of the ex-lover appears out of the floorboards. And it's just like this skeletal figure in the clothes that she was murdered in. And Shinji's just like staring at this thing in horror when all of a sudden all the like meat, and you can tell it's pretty much like maybe they just ran and got a bunch of like raw beef, ground beef and stuff. But we just see like this meat with the necklace on it drop to the floor, slide across the room until it reaches the rotten corpse, and then it climbs up it and goes inside its mouth. And as it's doing that, flesh and muscle start being like animated on this dead figure, on this dead skeleton. I think this effect was basically made with stop motion, which again, like I love practical effects. I love when movies use practical effects. It's why I prefer like older movies and the newer stuff. Not to say that CGI is terrible or anything like that, but I don't know. To me, it just feels like there's so much more like love put into practical effects rather than CGI. If that makes any sense, it's hard to explain, but yeah, we just get this like weird kind of stop motion-y effect where this meat goes into the creature's mouth and then it starts like pouring out of this like skeleton and it starts forming muscles and tissues and skin until eventually we just have this like really weird, grotesque, deformed looking woman. And it's the ex-lover in her original body, only her body's now effed up beyond belief. And as Shinji's like watching this body being formed, he notices his shotgun lying on the floor and he starts slowly like inching his way towards it. And he's about to lean down to grab his shotgun when Mika appears behind him. And she has been mutated. Her mutation isn't like as bad as this dead woman. Her mutation is basically like her skin is kind of like this bluish, purplish, palish kind of look. But yeah, she's basically now possessed. She like yanks some of Shinji's hair off of his head and then she shoves him and he ends up going like face first into this rotten corpse. And he looks up and the corpse basically places its hands on Shinji's face and then plants this disgusting kiss on his mouth. And Shinji like pulls away. And then that's when we get this moment where the possessed Mika appears and she basically just grabs him by the balls. She just runs up to him, cups him by the balls, and then lifts him up into the air by his balls. And then she chucks him. And he goes flying through the room. And we just have like this comical moment where he's like stumbling back and he hits the wall. He bounces off the wall. He hits the basement door, bounces off the basement door, and then tumbles down the basement steps. And then he like lands on his ass on the bottom of the steps. And then like something, I don't know what it is, like a piece of wood or a potted plant or whatever, falls and hits him on the head and he falls face first to the floor. And then he looks up, and then that's when he sees this shining light, like a beacon of hope. And this light is shining on a corner of the room where he has all of his weight equipment. And that's when he realizes that when his father said that your true weapon is down in the basement, he wasn't talking about the shotgun. He was talking about his weights. And so Shinji gets just fired up. He even yells out, "I'm pumped up." And he starts flexing his muscles. And his muscles are so big that they're ripping through his clothes. Like they're ripping through his shirts. Like he flexes and his bicep just rips through the shirts. Same with his chest. Like he starts flexing his chest and the buns just rip off. Because they can't contain his manliness. This dude's just so pumped up with muscles that this shirt, this clothing, just can't hold it all back. And he just like rips off his shirts and he just starts flexing and posing. And that's when we cut back upstairs where the rotten corpse is eating the leftover body parts of Mitsuguchi. And even Mika like grabs a piece and starts eating it. And then as they're enjoying this meal, that's when the door like gets kicked open and we see this like shining light entering the room. And then Shinji appears. And and he's like backlit, and he's wearing a black tank top. He's carrying some dumbbells. He has a bench press weight strapped to his back, and this is him in all his glory, all muscled up, and he's ready to fight. He's ready for the big showdown. And he even turns and he looks at the rotten corpse, and he grabs the bench press weight and he starts twirling it around as if it were like a bow staff. Like, this thing has weights on the side, and he's just easily twirling this thing around like a martial artist. And then he's like, come get some. So once again, he's using another Ash line. And he starts fighting, and he kind of like knocks Mika out of commission, and then he focuses all his attention on this rotten corpse, and he's just hitting it until eventually he uses the bench press weight. He stabs one end into the rotten corpse's head, drives it down to the floor, and then he puts his foot on the weight just above the corpse's head, and he presses all his weight down, which slams the weight onto the head and crushes it. So the rotten corpse gets crushed, and, you know, Shinji's like, don't take it personal. You're just not my type. And then that's when he rushes over to Mika, and Mika is still, like, possessed, and she's, like, desperately, like, clawing at him and stuff. And so Shinji just slaps the shit out of her. He just pulls his arm back, slaps her across the face, and as she's dazed, he yanks her head to the side, bites her neck over the wound that she has, and he just starts sucking. And then he turns and he spits whatever like poison was infecting her. And Mika just kind of collapses to the floor. And we get this kind of, I'll be honest, it's kind of like a cheap effect. It basically just looks like they took like a weird picture of the actress for Mika, and it just, I don't know, it looks like it came across kind of weird. And basically there's like a filter to make it look like she's possessed, and then they just erase the filter to make her look like she's back to normal. So yeah, Mika's no longer possessed. She's still kind of down for the count though. And that's when the rotten corpse comes back. It just reanimates again. And Shinji's like, you know, Jesus, like, what's it going to take to destroy this thing? And as this thing is like slowly trying to walk towards Shinji, Shinji goes back to his weight, and he starts trying to unscrew the weight on the bench press weight. And he does it just as the creature gets to him, and he turns and he uses the bench press pull to knock the corpse back, and then he stabs the corpse in the mouth and pins it to the wall. And he just kind of like is tired. He's injured. He was stabbed like in the leg earlier by Mika, and so he's just kind of like laying down. And that's when he notices that the corpse is still moving, and the corpse is basically grabbing at the pole that has pinned it to the wall, and it's slowly trying to pull itself off the pole. And so as this is happening, Shinji sees the shotgun not far from him, but he's too like exhausted to really get up. So as this creature is trying to pull itself off the pole, Shinji is trying to pull himself across the floor towards the shotgun. And just as the creature gets off the pole, Shinji grabs the shotgun and he starts just unloading onto this creature. And he's just blowing holes into it. He blows holes in its hands and its feet, blows off parts of the head, blows off holes inside the stomach, guts and blood and stuff are just flying everywhere as he's just unleashing into this creature, until eventually there's nothing but just a bunch of blood and guts and gore and meat and stuff all over the floor. And he turns to Mika, who's regaining consciousness, and she's back to normal. And, they're kind of like hugging each other when they hear some noise. And that's when they see that the meat is once again like forming into the face of this creature. And it does so for a brief moment before it collapses. It's finally done. The creature is dead. The ghost has been exorcised. The curse has been lifted. And Mika and Shinji pulled themselves up to their feet. And they walk towards the door. And we just have a moment where we're just kind of staring at the door and they're wondering, is this really it? Like, for real this time? And Shinji goes and he opens the door and it actually opens. And then they step outside into the sunlight. And they just hold each other as they walk down the stairs. And as they're walking down the stairs behind them, we see a final shot of the house where on the window, the face of the ex-lover appears. And then we cut to credits. And it's over. And that is Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell. And I love it. I love this movie so much. It's so, like, cheap. It's so cheap. But you can tell that there was, like, a lot of fun put into this. A lot of fun, a lot of love. Again, really shoestring budgets. You can tell that Shinichi didn't have a lot to work with in terms of a budget, but they were able to make do. And just how they were able to get around certain things, just like some of the effects that they made. It doesn't hold up by today's standards at all. But you can see the attempt, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I just love it so much. It's like they were just like, all right, let's just go balls to the walls. Let's have fun with this. We're going to have a decapitated head. We're going to have like a really kind of crappy paper mache for the decapitated head, like, when it's zoomed out and we see that's decapitated. And then we'll just use the actor when we do close-ups and having him talk. We're going to just use ground beef that we bought at the store as, gore. And we'll use stop motion to make it move and stuff. Some of the ideas are just kind of cool. Like, I love the fact that the decapitated head impaled itself on the forearm bone of a decapitated hand so that it can use the hand and the fingers to walk around. Like, that's just such a cool idea. Or that we see this rotten corpse that's like nothing but skeletal remains. And then we just have like the stop motion effect where we have like basically ground beef going into this thing's mouth, and then it's forming like muscles and tissues and skin and stuff. Like, everything is cheap, but it's so unique that I'm easily able to overlook all the cheapness. This is like a series that you can tell the people behind it were just having a lot of fun and just enjoying themselves as they were making it. And because of that, I easily enjoyed watching it. This is a movie that was made with love, and it's freaking fantastic. I highly recommend checking it out. If you love like B splatter films, if you love horror movies, if you love Evil Dead, check this out. It's great. The acting for Shinji, who, like I said before, was by Shinichi Fukuzawa. He directed, he wrote, he did like everything basically. It's just basically him trying to do his best Bruce Campbell, Ash Williams impression with a little bit of his own style. Like he does, like, what if Ash Williams was Japanese and really into lifting weights? And then you basically get Shinji. And I love it. And I wish that Shinichi was able to do more. Maybe there are some more movies out there that he did that are still lost to this day. If that's the case, hopefully we'll find them. But I would have loved to see more from this guy. Other than this, he only acted in one other movie, which he didn't direct. And as far as I know, I don't think he wrote it either. And it's just kind of a shame because I would like to see more of what this guy can do. Like I said, this was done on like a shoestring budget. He probably just got a couple of close friends to play the actors. Basically just used Photoshop, stop motion, claymation, paper mache, trips to the store to buy raw ground beef for the special effects, and everything works because you can tell that they just put a lot of love and effort into it. They did the best with what they had, and it was fantastic. And I wish I could see more from this guy. But at this point in time, I'm just kind of rambling. I love this movie. I think it's awesome. IMDb gives it a 6.4 out of 10. I would give it a 7. 7 out of 10. I know that's being generous, but I really did enjoy this movie. But then again, I'm someone that I can enjoy really cheap, low-budget, schlocky films. So take that into account. But if you want to check it out for yourself, like I said before, link is in the description below. You can find this on Tubi for free. You don't have to make an account. You don't have to put any personal information or any of that stuff. Just click the link and you'll be able to watch. You have to put up with ads, but that's it. And the ads aren't like pop-ups. They're basically, they're kind of just like if you're watching this YouTube video. If you're watching this on YouTube, you might be watching it somewhere else. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know how ads come up every once in a while? That's basically what it is. But check it out. It's fantastic. I love it. I wish there was more of this. And when I say more of this, I mean I wish there was more from Shinichi Fukuzawa. I would love to see what else he can do. But I love these crazy Japanese splatter films. You probably would have guessed that by seeing some of the other movies that I reviewed. And you're probably going to see some more. Because there's more Japanese splatter films that I have on my list that I would love to do reviews for. So keep an eye out for those in the future. But yeah, if you got any recommendations for movies, let me know. I'm always down to check out some new stuff. But I hope you enjoy this, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Later.